Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Of course, when I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which is an expression for me that means carpe diem, go after what you want. And what I wanted to do this year was to do a rewatch of Halt and Catch Fire and talk about it with other people. And it's happening. We're doing it. And I am so excited to talk with you about this episode. I love the Comdex episodes. And this is the first one we're going to get. This is season 1, episode 9, called Helly Aa. And it originally aired July 27th in 2014. It was directed by Terry McDonough and written by Jason Cahill. Here's the description. Joe, Gordon, Cameron, and Donna finally arrive at Comdex only to find their reservations revoked. The team swiftly devises another way in, but soon discovers that the giant refuses to boot up mere hours before their presentation. So a lot to get into here. Obviously, when we closed out the last episode, the team had, Gordon really pulled the group together. And he was the hero of the episode. He got everybody he stole the giant back. He got Donna, he got Cameron, he got Joe to get on board with going to Comdex on a rogue mission. And now they're here. This is the rogue mission. And we're going to get to see it play out, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. For those of you who, although we don't get Debbie in this episode, I did want to point out for anybody who missed it that last week I actually dropped an interview with Bianca Malinowski, who played Debbie in season 1, and she had lots of fun details to share. And I think one of the things that really hit home for me in the way that she described the whole scenario of season 1 is that you really have to understand that our group from Cardiff Electric really is doing something exciting. They're on the cutting edge of something, and it's a reason why everybody in the office was excited to be in the office despite the flux around them. And so, we're going to get a chance to see how cutting edge it really is. But it can be sort of masked in a Comdex episode because you're in a context where everybody is launching something, everybody's doing something exciting. And it's easy to forget that, this group of people had this great idea that stood out to the people in their community when you see it in the context with all these other ones. But I think it's part of what makes the Comdex episodes so exciting. So, here we go. Let's do a scene by scene breakdown. And as much as I thought I'd seen and read into this episode in the past, there was so much more that was unearthed for me in this rewatch. We're going to open up, the gang is driving to Comdex. So we're going to see a shot of all these cars driving on the highway. Heart of the City is playing the song. And we're, watching the station wagon as it makes its way to Comdex. Cam, Gordon, and Donna are in the front seat. Donna's driving. Joe is in the back. It's a bit of a weird layout. But I guess that makes sense. So Cam is groaning. Donna's like, we still have 300 miles to go. Cam is definitely the, are we there yet, kid? Donna's being the parent here. Cam is saying, oh, okay, so we're going to get to Vegas at 9 a.m. And she's in the middle of eating this burger that's dripping with grease. And it's this they obviously stopped to get a fast food burger just for her because nobody else is eating right now. Psycho Killer is playing on their radio. So it starts playing diegetically, and then we're going to end up hearing it louder in the scene. Joe is in the back and he is working on a speech by flashlight. We're going to see that he's working really hard to prepare his pitch. And in the meantime, Gordon is actually reading some of his notes. And what I like about it is the writing is small and barely legible, except you see the word giant really big. Donna is grossed out by Cam eating this burger. She's like, there are some napkins in the glove box. It's a casual invitation to Cam to be a little less of a slob. Again, Donna's being the mom, even in this situation. And Gordon finishes reading the piece of Joe's speech that he's reading, and he says, well, that's nice, and it's a nice ending. It's mysterious. And so Gordon is going to pass it back to Joe, but he does so by way of Cam, who's sitting in the middle in the front. And Cam grabs it. It's like, yeah. She passes it back to Joe. And in the process of that, gets like a big smear of ketchup on it. Like just her literal fingerprint in ketchup is now on the page, which feels very symbolic to me by the time we get to the end of this episode. So Joe, this is an episode where people are just going to keep doing things that gross out Joe. And so you can tell, like, he's a person who likes neatness and order and cleanliness. He's a guy who doesn't have a lot of clutter and a lot of stuff, and he wants things clean and tidy. So when Cam hands back this paper with a big ketchup stain on it, he's a little disturbed by that. He grabs a napkin, he tries to wipe it off, and now it's a bigger ketchup smear. It's yuck. For him, that is highly unpleasant. So Cam is trying to sort of figure it out. And this is where we're going to get a bit of exposition here. Cam's saying, like, I don't really understand. We're going to a trade show. There's tons of people there. The pressure's on them. We've got a product to sell and they want to buy it, right? Gordon's like, right, except there are thousands of vendors. They don't just swarm our booth. You use the booth to identify the buyers, and then you bring them up to the suite to try to hit them with the sales pitch. Donna says, yeah, you're trying to get them to the opening night party so you can get their attention. Gordon says, the suite is where you nail down the real deals. We're going to find in this episode that because of the way things unfold, it ends up being the exact reverse of this that ends up happening through, all of their best intentions. This is plan A, but plan A does not pan out for them. Donna points out, everybody in this environment is terrified. Again, everybody's in the big leagues when they're at Comdex. Nobody knows which new technology is going to win, she says, which one is going to get the most attention, the most notice. There's so many new things being unveiled that what's the most exciting new thing is hard to predict. Gordon sums it up in a different way. He said, yeah, your friends rip you off, your enemies buy you drinks. That's the culture. It's a very competitive environment. Donna's like, yeah, it's a cat fight. It's chaos. And again, we're perfectly setting up for what this episode is going to be, both in what this team is going to do to other people and what other people are going to do to this team. Gordon's like, yeah, but it's capitalism. I think that's the bright spot. That's the light at the end of the silver lining of the cloud. I don't know. Cam groans. And then Joe comes in with this explanation of a Scottish Isles festival, the Helly Aa festival. He says, yeah, the Scottish Isles, they have a festival on the coldest day of the year. Townspeople dress up in Viking costumes. They compete in squads. They're drinking, they're singing, they're dancing. And at midnight, they march to a huge wooden ship in the town square. He trails off. Because why is he telling the story? And Cam says, and then? Joe says, yeah, and then the winners burn it to the ground. And he smiles. This sounds like exactly the kind of festival Joe would like as somebody who both likes to create and to destroy. It satisfies the destruction element. Gordon's like, why did you just tell us that story? And Cam is just going to groan again. And then we're going to go back to a shot from outside the car where the car is still driving and the music playing louder. So, I do think it's an interesting point about that Scottish Isles Festival. It's, there's a competition there. It's a big event. The point is destruction, and that is how you win. So, I guess, is this what the writers are trying to tell us about what Comdex is all about? It's like everybody is giving us our understanding of what Comdex means. And maybe that'll change as we go through, or maybe it will be proved right. Okay, so we're going to get to Vegas. We're going to get a little B-roll of Vegas, some city shots, and we're going to get inside the hotel. We're going to get a big welcome to Comdex banner in this beautiful hotel lobby. And we're looking at check-in. Joe walks in through this lobby, this white, beautiful lobby, and he's wearing all black. He's all sleek. He's got glasses on. He absolutely sticks out among everybody else in this group. And we're watching him move through this sort of like, it's like a bar on the way to the check-in area, but it's like a central meeting place. So he is going to go up to hotel check-in. He is going to check in for a 3-bedroom suite on the 9th floor under the name of John Bosworth. He starts to fill out the registration card, and the attendant goes, wait a minute, did you say Cardiff Electric? Hang on a minute. He goes and grabs the manager because obviously this had been flagged in the system. And the manager comes up. Joe introduces himself as John Bosworth. Cam, Gordon, and Donna are looking on. They're all kind of just holding their breath at this point because, John is under criminal investigation right now. Not all is well in the John Bosworth world. And so, or the Cardiff world for that matter. And, I guess news is getting around. The manager says, okay, the card was declined this morning. We released the room. Joe says, I'll call the credit card company. The manager's like, I did that. So apparently your corporate account is frozen due to a pending criminal investigation. Cam and Gordon just sort of groan off to the side. Joe says, okay, how about you take a personal card? Now the manager looks at the card and sees that a different name is on the card. It's Joe McMillan. He's like, wait. I thought you were John Bosworth. What is happening here? Joe says, well, look, I can pay. Manager says, no, we are booked. Joe says, what if we add a $200 premium to the room for the night? They've got some money to spend. This is their last ditch effort. They've got money in pocket and they need to make this thing happen. But this guy is too sketched out by these people. He says, we've got 30 people on the waiting list for this room, and we're looking for some legitimate names to put into it. And that is his way of saying the conversation is done. And Joe knows that. So he walks back to the group. Cam's like, okay, so what now? So they have to figure out how bad this damage is. Joe goes over to a wall full of payphones, which really takes you back, right? I mean, these are the phones you would have. You'd have to go and wait for a payphone. So Donna, Gordon, and Cam are waiting as Joe gets on the phone, and he's trying to figure out if they still have a booth, but they don't. They lost their booth as well. So he says, look, the floor manager might be able to find something for us. So, we have to wait and find out what they're able to do. Donna says, okay, in the meantime, we need to find another hotel. Joe says, no. If we move, we end up being much further away. We're just we're a building away from the expo. And if we move, we lose all the foot traffic. We lose, because all of the other big companies are going to be in this hotel. So Joe is saying, we got to make this work. Donna's like, do we bribe somebody? Joe says, well, I tried that. Cam says, I don't believe this. We have $11,000 in cash. It's a huge amount of money for her. It's like what, a third of what she makes in a year? Just, can we get off our butts and do something about this? She just wants to go into action mode. And, everybody else is trying to figure out the right strategy for it. So all this time, Gordon's been quiet and he's been looking at the Comdex flyer. So I guess they have it's more of a layout map of who is located where. Gordon finds a name that he recognizes. He says, hey, Protonics Printers has suite 1475. He looks at Don. He says, remember those brothers from Sunnyvale? Remember they were like 6 booths away from us in 1981? Their demo was terrible, but they're here. So Gordon has picked out a target. And this is going to be the Cardiff Electric team's target to try to poach everything that they've already secured. Gordon seems to think these are good sitting ducks for them. So Gordon goes into authority mode because everybody else, again, Gordon's coming off an episode where he was, the MVP, he got everybody together, and he's needed to do that again here because everybody else is sort of stumbling around, just assessing damage. Gordon says, all right, Donna, You go talk to the floor manager. You get a booth no matter how much it costs, no matter where it is. Gordon then goes to Joe. He says, okay, you put on your best blue suit. He's gonna ask Joe to feign being IBM. And he says, we're gonna go make some room at the inn. And what is that room at the inn? The Protonics brothers are in the middle of giving a speech. So I love these characters. The Manning brothers are, they make the Comdex episodes for me. I love them. I love them so much. They are getting chewed up and spit out in this Comdex world, but I guess they've been doing it year after year after year, and it's part of tradition. What I love about the way this starts is that the camera starts outside the room. We're looking through a tiny little doorway, and we're seeing Donnie and Petey Manning delivering a speech to the first row of people in the crowd. It's not a big crowd. And the fact that we're looking from down the hallway through the doorway into this room makes them feel so small. It makes it feel like this is the smallest group in the smallest room. Like that's like anything could be happening in this room. I love that the camera choice here is just throwing shade on the Manning brothers. So we're going to see, we're going to hear that Donnie is taking the lead on reading the script. Both of them are standing completely still, both hands on their written, printed out scripts, no podium, just holding them up, sort of a little shaky. And they're just reading it word for word, robotic, like totally emotionless, no crowd interaction. They actually tried to plan crowd interaction into their script, but it's not happening. So it's weird and it's awkward and it's so wonderful. Donnie's saying things like, it can print with its head moving, and actually he says, it can print with its head moving in both directions. Yes, you heard that, right? Except nobody said anything. I love them so much. So that we're going to see somebody looking at the Occasion Master brochure, which is the product that they're pitching. Gordon is listening intently. He obviously is looking for some sort of an opening here. He has a plan to take these brothers down. Joe is just listening to these guys do this pitch, and he's not particularly happy to be in that room, and he's just shaking his head. Like, these guys are just babes in the woods. So, Donnie's saying that's where the Occasion Master steps in. It has preset fonts and balloons and sparkle graphics. Your near and dearest are guaranteed a special feeling. The result? Let's pass out those samples, Petey. He springs into action, passing out samples. Their close to this pitch is from the garden party to the bachelor party. The Occasion Master is truly your master of ceremonies, they say together. Any questions? Gordon springs into action. Gordon's like, yeah, technical thing, serial or parallel port? Petey's like, well, parallel, but we're hoping to upgrade that soon. So he just jumps right in with a question they don't even want. Gordon's like, okay, the cost? Petey says $900 plus tax. Gordon says, okay, wait. So I'm supposed to pay $1,000 to wait 20 minutes for that printer to spit out a card that I could make myself in 5 minutes? This really brought me back because I remember when I was little, I don't remember what kind of printer it was that we had, but I remember those printers that, like they're going back and forth slowly, and, it takes absolutely forever to work its way all the way down the page. And, if you had a lot of printing to do, you were going to be there a minute. Like, plan something else for your day as you're doing that. So it really brought me back to that, where printer speed has gone up so much in the years since that you almost forget the pain it was like to just wait for something to spit out the results you needed. So Donnie is getting a little indignant now. He's like, 100 CPS is quite fast, my friend. Gordon's like, yeah, but not lightning. And now some other people in the room are starting to chime in. Like, yeah, not really that fast, is it? Donnie says, we've been testing the OM with no problems, the occasion master with no problems for some time now. 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes. How much is some time? It's like, uh, you know that Donnie just doesn't want anybody to ask them to show how it works. And he walked directly into his own trap. So Gordon's like, cool, show us. Someone says, yeah, print something. Donnie's like, oh God. And you can see Donnie and Petey just holding their breath. The printer malfunctions, just as we knew it would. It just, the paper feed just starts to load the paper in on an angle, and you're just like, oh, this is going to be a nightmare. And it is. Gordon says, because he needs to put a real proper nail in the coffin. He's only partway through the plan. He says, I hear IBM is coming out with a multiple format paper printer feed. Joe in the back is supposed to be IBM staking out this room here and this pitch. Donnie's like, where did you hear that? And Gordon just sort of looks back a little bit, and their eyes go straight to Joe. Uh-oh, IBM is competing with them. They're never going to be able to beat that. Okay, we're going to skip over to Joe sitting at one of those like sort of restaurant main area tables that he walked past earlier. He's with Petey and Donnie. And it's interesting because this scene, Joe is doing to Petey and Donnie what Hunt's going to do to him later. He's going to sit at another one of these tables, and he's going to be on the Petey and Donnie end of the situation. So it's really easy to forget, like, it's so funny because at this point in the story, Joe has sort of ingratiated himself with the audience to a degree. I don't think we forget that he's a dangerous character, but he is somehow we have more sympathy for him. So, whether he is doing what he's about to do to Petey and Donnie, or whether he's on the receiving end, what he's going to get from Hunt, there is more sympathy now for him. But yet, by having these other characters there, you can put into context what Joe really has been doing all this time. And it doesn't feel great. So we have this scene with Joe and Petey and Donnie, and he's like, I'm not supposed to tell you this. Petey and Donnie lean all the way in. Because, okay, here's the secret. Joe's like, we are, in fact, coming out with a multiple format printer first of the year. And the brothers just look exasperated. Joe's like, I'd suggest getting out of our way, but totally up to you. He's like, what, do we just pack up and leave? Petey's like, we put everything we have into this. Joe says, what, I love it when you guys take us on, but it doesn't always work out well. There was this guy from Duluth, he had his own word processor. It went head to head with the display writer. His wife left him. He lost his house. He drove his car into a library. He's still in a mental hospital recuperating. And the guys are just, oh my God, that could be us. Joe's making all of this up. Petey says, oh, man, we already checked in. The suite's paid through the end of the week. Joe said, well, I might be able to help with that. Hey, us at IBM, we have 2 floors of the hotel and we're still bursting at the seams. We might be able to take that off of your hands. And the other brothers are like, oh, if we could break even on this, that could be good for us. Donnie says, except we have that huge spread coming for the party tonight, that whole shrimp tower. You'd have to eat that cost. Joe just grins. So, Petey and Donnie, I just feel so bad for them. They're being eaten alive at probably their like 5th consecutive condex, So, okay, we're going to go to the booths area where Donna's trying to make it work. She's trying to secure a booth. It looks like she did. It's not in an ideal location. It's not in the center like she had been promised initially. And Cam's trying to hang a banner in a very DIY kind of way, which is really not a safe thing to be doing. Donna is fighting with the worker. He's like, look, your check bounced. You guys are late. You're lucky you even got this space. So Donna wishes she had more wall space, but this is it. This is what they've got. The worker leaves. And we're going to see these ladies in these sort of gold and green outfits who are handing out free software. And this is something that Cam notices. She says to Donna, well, that's one way to make a living. Donna says, no, 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 this isn't their living. This is a strategy from the city of Vegas. They knew that, you know, computer nerds don't gamble. And so they tried to find another way to make money from us. And they schedule a porn star convention the same time as Comdex every year. So Cam's, you know, fascinated by this. Donna has like an idea sparks for her. Cam's thinking about this space. Everybody's trying to get some ideas about how to make the best of bad circumstances. So Cam looks around, she gets an idea. She grabs some money from their envelope and she says, all right, I'm going to get people to the party. I'll work on the booth. You figure out how to make the party great. So she leaves and Donna looks around again at the booth babes and she gets some idea as well. So everybody is getting ideas on how to make the most of this situation. Okay, so now we're going to go up the elevator because we want to go to their suite, the suite that they just poached from Donnie and Petey. And Joe is currently wheeling their shrimp tower into the room. It looks so gross. Like, I don't know. Something about this. The room is super pink. The shrimp are pink. I don't know. It's something about this isn't like a very appetizing way that the shrimp have been presented to me. Maybe that's like the high class way to do it, but I saw it and I thought this is odd. Donna and Gordon are currently testing the machine in the main room and it won't even start. The giant isn't working. So Donna's like, oh my God, what do? We need some sort of an anti-static workstation. Joe says, all right, we're moving this into the bedroom. We need to get people in this room. So Blister in the Sun starts playing. For those of you who heard the interview with Robert Komatsu, the editor, he had some great things to say about this episode and this scene in particular. So be sure to check that one out. But in the meantime, so Blister in the Sun is playing and we're going to get a montage between Cam setting up the booth and Joe setting up the anti-static workstation in the bedroom, one of the bedrooms of the suite. So Cam's setting up the booth. She's gone out. She's to some sort of art supply store. She's gotten huge foam blocks, cans of spray paint, chains. She's got a briefcase. And she's going to do a little art project, a very visible, very public art project where she's spray painting and cutting foam and tying the briefcase to the top of it with chains. Meanwhile, Joe is cutting up plastic and he is, you know, putting it all over the furniture to create this anti-static workstation. But it also kind of made me think of like, what's the name of is it Patrick Bateman and American Psycho? Like it was just like, is this an anti-static workstation or is it a room where you're going to kill somebody? It's like, who knows here at Comdex? It could be either one. So this is what's happening in this montage. And by the time it's done, Cam's got the booth all set up and we're going to pan back from that. And we're going to see she's written, there's a giant in this briefcase. Norwick Suite 1475 is written on the wall space in spray paint. And she leaves, people start coming up and sort of touching and observing the art project, the art installation that she just created. So Cam's going to go back up to the suite. She's going to toss a paint can. Donna's like, what's that for? She says, touch-ups. We're going to see what the touch-up was for in a bit. But Cam's now noticing that they're trying to get the machine to start up. She's like, it's not booting. Donna says it's a hardware issue. It's not your problem. She's still being the mom. She tells Cam to pick up some of the clothes in the room. And we see Joe reading his speech into the mirror, still trying to prepare, still hoping for plan A to work out. So Joe says, is anybody coming? Should I even ask about the booth? Cam's like, I would. Okay. But it's true. There's a knock on the door. There's a bunch of people waiting outside. Joe lets them in. So people file into the common area while Gordon and Donna are trying to get the machine to work in a separate room. And once those people get into the room, the clock starts ticking. How long are they going to stay in it without actually having this demo yet? So we're going to see the start of the party in the Cardiff Electric Suite. There's music playing. People fill the room. There are people all over the room. And we see that Cam had used the spray paint. There was a sign that says Cardiff Electric, a banner that's hung from the ceiling. And she had used the can of spray paint, the red spray paint, to highlight electric. Which feels very on brand now. And people are starting to ask Joe if it's ready yet. It's obviously been a while that they've been in the room and still no demo. So he's going to go back to Gordon and Donna, and the machine's still not working. We find out it hasn't been working for 2 hours. So Cam is talking with a guy. We're going to find out later that this is a guy from Xerox, which is based in California. And Joe keeps looking on because Cam's having a really good conversation with this young guy from Xerox. And if we're being honest, this young guy is much closer to Cam's age. And, he's whispering sweet nothings into her ear about what it's like to work for this company and in California. And so, and meanwhile, another actually very important conversation that's happening here is Donna is talking with an old friend, Wally Clark, somebody who knows both Donna and Gordon, and they're talking about his new program. So we're going to go back and forth between these conversations where Cam's talking with the Xerox guy. She's like, isn't everything you guys do secret? And he says, oh yeah, you're right. Metaclassing, hypertext, object-oriented programming. Cam's like, stop. It's so I don't know, it's sort of fun and flirty, but it's also kind of not flirty. It's like all Cam really needs is somebody talking code language to her. Joe's going to use the word wholesome later. And yeah, it just feels like she's just turned on enough by the technical knowledge. Wally, meanwhile, is talking to Donna and he's asking about Gordon. He's like, oh, I love that you two are working together. A lot of couples can't make that work. So glad you did. They aren't actually working together. Donna has another full-time job and, she's just here, helping Gordon. She's saving the day once again. So Donna's pretty awkward in that moment because I think, and we're going to see shortly, like, there's a lot of stuff happening in her brain around what this relationship with Gordon is. I mean, she was a breath away from walking out on him altogether, but instead came with him to Comdex. So this conversation with Wally feels weird for her. Donna's going to go back into the room where Gordon's still trying to work on the machine. She's like, these guys aren't going to wait much longer. Joe agrees. He's going to pick up the machine. He says, you know what? It's too late. We're going to have to get going with what we have. Gordon's like, you're going to do a demo without the demo? Joe says, we're going to have to bluff. It is Vegas. So Joe bursts out of the room with the giant over his head, cheering and shouting, and the whole room starts shouting and cheering too. And we are going to see Joe in sexy Joe salesman mode here. He is the sexiest Joe salesman maybe we ever see in the show right here, because boy, does he need to make up for not being able to actually do a demo. That's what they're all there for. Remember, their intention was get people from the booth, get them up to the suite to do the business. And now he's going to have to do the reverse of this, which is probably counter to every speech that he wrote for this. So, okay, he needs to bluff. He puts down the machine. It's on this beautifully lit pedestal. There it is, the giant. He puts it down. He says, okay, folks, do you want me to turn it on? He opens it up. Everybody's cheering. Yeah. He opens it up. Everybody whistles. He says, right here, right now, you want me to turn it on? Sexy Joe. And he says, but wait a minute. Vegas knows how hard it is to build a computer, especially one as sleek and fast as our bad boy right here. And he gives some tech specs on that. And then he says, but Vegas doesn't want to hear about how fast our machine is. Vegas doesn't care that our LCD screen makes the giant of Featherlight 15 pounds, that it's fully portable, fully compatible, and sexy as hell. Everybody cheers. He's being all, sexy Joe. Everybody's like, woo. He says, Vegas wants us to have fun. I mean, why else would it schedule the world's largest porn convention next door? People cheer and they're whistling. He says, which leads me to our special guests for tonight, the Cardiff Electric VIPs. We have 4 lovely young ladies direct from the cinema. Gordon looks back at Donna. He knows how this happened. Bunch of Cameron smirks, bunch of people kind of whooping in the audience. Joe says, but wait a minute, before we get to those ladies, you want me to show you some spreadsheets? And the crowd's like, no. He says, come on, let's do some word processing. They're like, no, we want to see the women. And so he says, okay, wait, so you want to meet the girls now before we even do the demo? They're like, yeah, they're tricking themselves at this point. So he says, all right, we'll do it, but only if you agree to show up at the Cardiff Electric booth tomorrow to watch our demo. So again, it's the reverse of the Gordon and Donna were very specific about how this works in the car, and they're doing the opposite because they have to. So he closes with, let's let the giant turn you on tonight. And then Donna opens the door and all the ladies come in and dancing begins. And Cam and Gordon move the giant. Joe starts spraying champagne everywhere. Donna's like, please don't tell the girls that I ever was part of this. She says that to Gordon. Gordon shouts, Cardiff Electric. And so they're going to start having a party. It's a proper party. And Joe successfully did it. He teased the product, and they're going to have to see the pitch at the booth tomorrow. So, okay, now we're going to see that Cam is still talking with the guy from Xerox. He's talking about how he comes to Vegas a couple times a year. He's like, you have to visit California. It's where it's at. I mean, you're young. You're, like Texas is cool, I'm sure, but you're young, and that's young people belong in California. There's a whole culture that's developing out there, and it seems like Cam would fit right into it. Kim's like, I don't know. What about earthquakes? He's like, I don't feel them. She's like, what about cults and serial killers? He's like, that's in LA. And that made me really sit with that, because a lot of the serial killers that you hear about were very prominently in the news during that time. And that very well might be a consideration for a young woman moving somewhere. Kim says, how about the Grateful Dead? That doesn't work for me. Guy's like, you're mean. And anyway, they're hitting it off. So he invites her to join him and Xerox guys for pancakes. It's going to be a group hang sort of a situation. Yay. So Joe is watching all of this. And, I think on a level, Joe recognizes that this is probably more of a cultural fit for Cam than what she's currently being presented with at Cardiff. And this guy she's talking to is probably more of a cultural fit for her than Joe in some ways, right? So he's just observing all of this. Meanwhile, he's talking with Dennis from Computerland. Dennis is like, if the giant is what you say it is, it could be a contender for us. Joe's like, okay, but be serious with me. Why would you want this? Don't tease me about this. Dennis, in gross out Joe number 2 moment, Dennis is sitting with one leg sort of crossed over the other with his foot pointed towards Joe. He takes off that shoe, like so close to Joe's face, and he scratches his foot through the sock. And Joe's just like, oh, don't blow this. Like, must contain my disgust. So Donna says, well, if you want to sell station wagons, you better have a sports car to park in the window. So I'm looking forward to your demo tomorrow. The giant has been pitched as the sports car. So that's what they've got at this point. And Joe's going to go back out to Donna and Gordon. It's after the party. It's some hours later. Things are just, unwinding. And the giant's finally working. Joe lies back on his bed and he falls asleep, and Donna and Gordon are now flirting with each other through Cam's OS prompts, because they can do that without having to speak in front of Joe, but they get to write things that we don't even get to see. So it's very flirty. They're seducing each other. I haven't done that since our honeymoon. I haven't done that since college. There's all this, banter that's happening. And then they go off to their room, to another room. and they're going to have sex. And then it's the next morning. We're not going to see any of that, but we will see the next morning that they're awake and they're talking. And I don't know if they slept at all last night. But they're already thinking and brainstorming. And Donna's like, do you think it's going to sell? Gordon says, well, if we do a good job with the demo, it will. Donna says, oh, this could be so good. For so long, we've just gotten by. And Donna mentions, Wally Turner, he dropped by the party. I like his new software idea. That's going to become relevant a little bit later. Gordon, I don't know how much Gordon really likes Wally, but he says, yeah, I told him that we'd spec out the software on the Giant. And I don't know, it sounds like Wally is a guy that always pitches to them no matter what. Donna says, and there's this huge emotional thing that Donna is now going to raise, because remember, she was going to leave Gordon maybe, and instead came with him to Comdex. So Donna's probably trying to figure out how to make this sustainable for herself. And Donna says, Wally thinks we still work together. So she's approaching this conversation softly. And Gordon's like, yeah, well, what did you say? Donna says, well, what would I say? That I'm enjoying my dead-end job and having my mom raise my kids? And Gordon's like, what? What a way to paint that picture. He says, you've saved this project a dozen times or more. Donna says, well, I know you know that. Donna's never gotten credit for any of the work that she does. She's been credited as Susan Fairchild, as her mom, for all of the work that she does for Gordon and for Cardiff Electric. And, I think she is finding a way to raise here that's been an issue. Gordon's like, well, what? You want to join Cardiff? You want to get a front row seat to the freak show? And Donna's like, well, I didn't say that, but it would have been nice if you asked. So Donna's sort of been hoping all this time that Gordon not just would have acknowledged her with a quiet thanks, but in a more public way, in a way that incorporated her onto the team and into the project that he was working on. She asked him if he was going to partner with Joe, to partner with her in her marriage as well. And she doesn't feel like that's been happening. And inviting her into the team would have been a way to partner with her as well. And he never thought to do it. Gordon says, well, I should have asked. He says, a few months ago, I was in the kill room. I was working late by myself, and I realized how hard we were going to have to grind to get there, to get this giant built. He said it was like climbing a cliff and you get to an overhang and you don't know how to go up and you don't know how to go down. He says, you realize in that moment what the word jump means. If I held your hand and counted to 3, I wasn't sure if you'd come with me. Now, not to give you any spoilers here, but in the future in the show, we are going to see sort of a story from both Donna and Gordon's perspective about jumping off a cliff. And so I kind of forgot that he made the reference here. But if this is your first time watching the show, just file away in your brain this metaphor that he gives about jumping off a cliff, and know that this will be something that you want to come back to later. Donna's like, we're married. We jumped off the cliff already. It happened. That's a thing we already did. So, it's an interesting conversation, because I think this is very high stakes for Donna, this conversation. And I don't know if Gordon fully realizes that. He's just getting a little glimpse into it. So Cam's going to look down at Joe. She's come back from hanging out with the Xerox guys. She was out apparently all night. And she comes back. She sees Joe sleeping. She's going to put a rock on the night table next to him with a little bit of a thud, and it's going to wake Joe up. So he's like, he's just waking up and his eyes are adjusting. She says, this is a piece of the Hoover Dam. She says, you know what I like about it? There are no circuits. There are no wires. It's simple. It is what it does. Joe says, did you have fun? Cam says, well, we ate pancakes and watched the sunrise with the Xerox boys. He's like, well, that's a wholesome thing to do. Cam, something has been on her mind. And she says, when Boz came to me, I should have come to you. One of the things I like about how they shot this scene is that in the beginning of this conversation, we are seeing the camera angle just pointed directly at Joe and Cameron. But in this moment, and then a couple times later in this scene, the camera angle is going to switch to looking at them through the mirror. So the camera is sort of, it looks like it would be somebody on another bed looking through the mirror to watch this scene with Joe and Cameron. It feels like there's somebody in the room with them, that we're in the room with them. And it added for me a voyeuristic element to this, an almost detached element. So Joe is saying, well, California, you know, it's impressive out there. Maybe you should go to Palo Alto. Cam says, maybe we should. And they look at each other. And in this moment, it feels like a real possibility, but then the camera angle switches again to through the mirror. We're going to watch her leave and he's going to sit up. So yeah, that camera angle really takes it. It goes from making me feel personally connected to the scene to making me feel like I'm watching it from afar. And maybe that's how we're supposed to feel about what's happening for them in this moment. Maybe Joe's feeling that way. He's feeling disconnected. Okay, so now that morning, you know, they have to do their pitch at the booth. Donna, Cam, Joe, and Gordon are walking through Comdex. They're walking past all the other booths. And Joe's observing HP's touch screen. Gordon's like, oh, that's a fad. Maybe not so much of a fad. Donna's like, look, high density floppy disks. You know, they're getting excited about things. And then they hear a bunch of people clapping. Joe's like, ooh, somebody is hot. Let's go check it out. So they are going to walk to where the clapping is happening. And now we're going to get a huge reveal. So we're going to start. We can't see the people presenting yet. We're seeing the back of their heads. The shot is from overhead behind them so that we can see people presenting and a whole bunch of people sort of arced out in a half circle, maybe like a lunar shape sort of in front of them, as the Cardiff team starts walking from the back towards them through up to the people. And we're going to start hearing the language that the main presenter is using. What's the point of a revolution if you have to sell your car to afford it? We're trying to give you the simplest product with the most flexibility. Donna freezes as she's walking. She recognizes the voice. Cam's mouth drops open because she's starting to hear some things that don't sound good to her. The person's saying 8086 processing, double-sided motherboard, packed with functionality, which describes the giant. Donna is now walking up to get a closer look. Hunt says, Hunt, her boss, her former supervisor, says, it's so strong, it's so fast, it's so simple, it's a wonder no one thought of it before. And then he sees Donna and he pauses. He has a little hitch in his step for a moment. He takes a breath and he's gonna lift the flip chart and he's going to reveal the slingshot, a product that looks not unlike the giant. And his partner on the other side is going to reveal the other flip chart that says the slingshot. And that partner is Brian, the next door neighbor of Gordon and Donna, who was fired by Gordon. What an interesting team. Gordon is going to walk closer now that he sees Brian. And then Hunt is going to say, and this is quite the dig, he says, as Goliath found out, victory goes not to the swift nor to the strong, but to the little guy who strikes first. Which is them? It's the slingshot. Brian is going to smirk at Gordon because he won. Hunt says, any questions? And Donna is going to rush him. She is going to start hitting him, fighting him. Some people start to pull her off of him. Joe comes and actually pulls her off of him. Damn you, she's saying. And yeah, Brian just says to Gordon, payback's a bitch. Gordon looks stern. Cam looks shocked. Well, the first time I saw this scene, this came out of nowhere for me. And I will say, when you know this reveal is happening, if you look back, it's kind of the pieces of this are all there. You can see that there's a point when Hunt starts to be more seductive with Donna, and she starts giving him more information, and so he keeps being more seductive with her, and he's absolutely grooming her to just cough up as much information as she can. And obviously Brian, who knew so much about the project up until a point with that Cardiff was working on, but then was fired uh, with very little ceremony. And he was obviously pretty broken about it, and didn't know what to do with himself, and probably turned to drink. And so the one thing that really caught me off guard especially is like, wow, how did these two get together? Which I feel like, I'm guessing that, especially given something that Hunt says later about an opportunity presenting itself, I feel like somehow Brian found out or knew or had met Hunt at some point, and Brian showed up on Hunt's doorstep and explained the situation and presented Hunt with an offer that he couldn't refuse. I think that's probably, in my head, that's how this happens. But yeah, the first time I saw this reveal, I thought, wow, what an unlikely partnership. And what's so interesting about it is that these two, like, what are they really doing? They come off as villains in this episode, but what are they really doing that the team at Cardiff hasn't done? What are they doing that the Cardiff team didn't do to people like Petey and Donnie at the start of this episode? So it is interesting how perspective and storytelling and gathering sympathy for a person can change how you feel about an outcome for them. But yeah, all of a sudden Hunt and Brian are these villains, and it's such a cool, interesting turn that really did catch me by surprise. So now, okay, we're gonna have to unravel from this. So Gordon and Donna are walking in front. Joe and Cam are walking behind. They're walking through the hotel hallway back to their suite. And Cam's like, they copied our machine. How could they even do that without schematics? Joe's trying to figure out the scale of the amount of corporate espionage that just happened. And Gordon and Donna get to the suite first, and they block Joe and Cam from getting into it because they need to have a really serious marriage conversation right now. So Donna's like, I never brought anything to TI. Like, maybe he overheard, I don't know, phone calls. She point blank told him a lot of stuff. She told Hunt a lot of stuff. She's like, or maybe it was the fax you sent to the hotel. I mean, Donna's squirming here. It's not a pretty look for her. Gordon says, are you sleeping with him? Donna says, no, I kissed him once. Yeah, I kissed him. And for like 2.5 seconds, I felt better than I have in 2 years. Gordon says, you're a child. Donna says, well, I wanted him, and there were reasons. There were you and me reasons. We were not on a moonlit carriage ride. Things were not all well in our world and in our marriage. Gordon's just indignant here. He used you and you let him. Donna says, at least he encouraged me and rewarded me. I mean, she was pretty ready to be groomed. It probably was not all that difficult for Hunt to appeal to her because she was feeling all of that was missing in her marriage with Gordon. Gordon says, you never saw what he was doing. From Gordon's perspective, like, this was a really predatory act from Hunt, and Donna fell right into the trap. Donna says, you never even picked me up out of a hole in the ground. I lifted you up so many times. I carried you and the kids. I was tired and miserable, and you didn't give a shit. It wasn't an affair, but it should have been. I mean, the thing is, like, Donna did something not good. Yes. And she was unhappy for a long time. And Gordon found this whole new life in pursuing the giant, and Donna just got stuck living this life that they both seemed to sink themselves into before the start of the show. And she's feeling resentful about that. She was feeling resentful about that, and she felt encouragement from Hunt. So both of them did things that led them to this place, but neither of them really feels like they can take ownership of it here, which is unfortunate. Gordon says, you made your decision. Go ask for his suite number. I'm sure he'll let you in. Donna says, it's like you didn't pick the giant over me every single day. You want to be right more than you want me. Gordon says, well, you should go. Maybe your parents were right about me. I'm just a small-minded, petty, resentful little tyrant, part-time alcoholic, full-time failure as a father. I knew what I had with you and never stopped trying to live up to that, though. To you, and never gave up. And I don't know. Was he ever really a partner with her this season? So he goes to their bedroom and she's going to leave the suite. And then we're going to see Gordon sitting in the bedroom, staring out the window. He is completely in focus as Joe is going to come into the common area room, but you can see both of them because the door is open. Joe is also looking out the window. So they're both parallel to each other. Gordon is in focus. Joe is out of focus. And we're going to hear Joe talking because I guess Joe tried to see how bad the damage was with Computerland, and it was pretty bad. Computerland has changed their mind. Dennis, he's saying like the dynamic OS, the design, they don't care about that. They want a station wagon. The slingshot is faster and cheaper. We're dead. So Dennis saying we want a sports car to park in the window. He's changing strategy because he's seen the slingshot. Gordon's tearing up. Joe walks away. Okay, Gordon has a plan. He grabs a beer and he starts taking apart the giant. Okay, so now we're going to see a scene that will mirror what we saw Joe doing with Petey and Donnie earlier. They're at another one of these tables in that main sort of restaurant area, bar area. And this is a different feeling of a conversation for Joe. So Hunt is sitting with him and he's like, well, I know how painful this must be, but when two paths converge, they don't always continue on together. One peels off, the other dead ends. Joe's like, stop pretending like you're Robert Frost here. He says, you're a pawn shop hack selling my dream under a cheap plastic mask. So, he says, apologize, pull your product. I'll consider not suing you. Hunt has the upper hand here. He says there's no point in litigating because by the time you even get this in front of a jury, we're going to be on our third iteration of this product. And it's not like you have such a nobler version, a copy version of the IBM BIOS. There's nothing for you in litigating. Joe is indignant. He says, okay, you must be proud hiring our sloppy seconds, pumping a competitor's wife. That's one way to do business. This feels like a very Joe versus Joe conversation, right? Hunt feels like another Joe. And I don't know if Hunt was always another Joe, but he certainly feels like it now. Hunt says, the opportunity presented itself. No laws were broken. Are you telling me you'd do different? Your SVP is under indictment. You're sleeping with your lead coder, not to mention that little incident back in Armonk. He starts writing something on a napkin. Following an argument with your father, you ruptured a water main and flooded an entire IBM data center. Wow, Daddy must have made you angry. I did my homework. Joe looks very caught here. And I think it's interesting because multiple times in the series so far, we've referenced that Joe did something really bad, something really damaging when he left IBM, that he just had some sort of destruction there. But I don't know that we've ever heard it so explicitly put. And we're hearing it from Hunt, a guy that he's never met before, who knows all of the dirt on both him and how things are happening at Cardiff Electric. So, Hunt played this situation. So the thing that he wrote on the napkin was Nathan Cardiff's number, which is, of course, not the number that Joe would want. Hunt knows that. Hunt says, okay, so you can go upstairs, you can call him, and you can tell him that I offered you $2 million in slingshot stock for the giant. That way it covers your R&D, you get out of this hole. Joe says, and then you strip us for parts. Hunt says, yeah, well, such is life. Your mistake here was falling in love with that query-based interface. It hogs memory. Joe says, we're never going to sell this to you. Hunt says, well, after we sell to computer land, all of this is academic. We've already got their attention. Go ahead and tell Donna it wasn't personal. Joe, there's nothing Joe can say here. So he just sort of lashes out and he says, I feel sorry for you, Mr. Whitmarsh. You cheated yourself. You'll never create anything of your own. Hunt says, neither will you. We're in the compatible business. You tried to be good. We just had to be good enough. And he looks super smug and Joe walks away. And I can't help but think this whole scene for me feels like Joe versus Joe. It feels like nowadays you see these like sci-fi, TV shows and movies where you actually see like clones of the same character fighting each other. And this sort of feels like that. It's two different people, but they're sort of the same person doing the same things. And we're inclined to think that Hunt is a villain here, but really what has Hunt done that's so different from anything that Joe's done? And he highlights that really well here. So it's like, you either hate both of them or you love both of them, but yet you don't want to feel that way because we've invested so much into Joe and we feel like we understand him better and we understand his upbringing and his trauma and his pain more. And so his actions seem to make more sense to us. But is it really all that different? Okay, so we're going to go back to the elevator. Joe's going to get on the elevator and Cam's going to get on before it closes. They both look really pained and they're going to hold hands on this elevator ride. And that is the last time they will be closely connected here in this episode. So they're going to walk into their suite. Gordon is full on drunk. He is drinking a beer. There's at least 3 more stacked up. And he says, well, he stripped out the daughter board and all the extraneous memory. Cam's eyes go wide. She knows what it means, but she has to verify. She runs to the giant and she goes to see if it'll recognize her as Cameron, and it doesn't. Her operating system is gone. Gordon explains, Wally lent me MS-DOS. It'll beat the slingshot on speed and be $100 cheaper. So he replaced the operating system with one that was going to run faster and not hog up as much memory so that it could be a cheaper machine. Cam's just in disbelief. She's like, you took it out? Everything that made it unique? Gordon says, we had a problem. Now we have a product. Joe has this look on his face. He's looking at Gordon. He looks some combination of upset and angry, but not so much at Gordon. To me, it's like he knows that he's in another situation where both Gordon wants one thing, Cam wants another, and he's going to have to be the deciding factor. And he hates this position. And he also knows exactly what decision he has to make. And he doesn't want to hurt Cam. But what other choice does he have? So Cam and Gordon are both looking at him. Cam looks at him and says, you can't let him do this. And she gets, his attention. She gets Joe to look at her. And then Joe looks back at Gordon. And Gordon's already accepted that this is the required outcome. Look, the personal relationships are going to have to take a back seat here to the practicality of the situation, which is these are their last dollars they spent getting to Comdex. They have to sell this machine. They actually have to sell it. And there's only one way to do that. And Gordon knows it and Joe realizes it, and it's going to kill Cam. Joe says, it's what's right for the machine. Cam looks devastated. Gordon walks out of the room to the bedroom because clearly this is a conversation that Joe needs to have with Cameron, but the decision is made. Cam leaves the room. She walks back out in the hallway towards the elevator. Joe's going to run after her. He's running after Cam in the hallways. He's like, it's called survival. Cam says, don't speak to me. Joe says, it's an existential choice. Sell none of the original or a million of these. Cam says, and no one will remember a single one of them. Joe says, it's still our machine. Cam says, it's empty. Joe says, look, we need to demo by the end of business or we're dead. I need you there. I want you there. Cam says, then put it back in. Joe can't. The elevator door closes. She's inside the elevator. We see her face. She looks so hurt, so betrayed. And then the elevator door closes and we see the reflection of Joe in the middle of the elevator door. And he just looks in pain. I think, people talk about Cam being young and needing to mature. She was just betrayed, like from her standpoint, this was always about the soul of the machine. She's been very consistent of that. This machine didn't mean anything to her when it was just a machine. And then it meant something to her when it had a personality, when it had a heart and a soul. And same thing about her relationship with Joe. And so, like, to strip that back out for business is to completely discredit her work and her ideas, and to say, it doesn't need to have a soul. It can't have a soul for it to sell. And so, like, I get it. And she is young. How many times in life has she been betrayed like this on such a big scale with people who she's really, started to grow very close with? So on many levels, it makes sense to me that she would be feeling as betrayed as she does by this. I respect that she feels that way. And the thing is, like, this wasn't Joe just being a jerk for the sake of being a jerk, which we've seen him do that before. Like we've seen him be manipulative. This is not a decision he wanted to make. It definitely is a decision that he had to make, because it hurts Cam, but it hurts everybody else, including Cam, not to sell this product. So I don't know what other choice he really had in this, but I understand that Cam feels betrayed by it. So we are now going to get to the Cardiff team pitching to the crowd, which is in this case just Gordon and Joe. And Joe is, he's delivering the pitch about as emotionless as he can. Very different from his sexy salesman Joe from the night prior. And he's saying, okay, he's sharing the technical information. Gordon is currently playing a game on the Giant. Joe closes with, whether it's composing music or cobbling together your family finances, the Giant is there. It's not just a part of your family, it's a part of your life. He flips over to the page of his notes where Cam's ketchup smudge is her actual literal fingerprint. And he just can't anymore. And he just stops. And the Computerland guy, Dennis, he's looking on. He kind of sighs, waiting for something to happen. Hunt and Brian are looking on, feeling probably very good about themselves in this moment. Gordon takes over. He says, any questions? One guy says, I heard it asks you stuff, like it learns your name. Gordon says, where'd you hear that? Sounds a little Buck Rogers. Another guy says, okay, then so it's fast and it runs all the software, but besides portability, I'm not seeing a lot that's special here. I'm not seeing a lot that's unique. And we're going to get a monologue from Joe that probably pained him to have to say. This is the opposite of everything he ever wanted from this launch. But he's having to say it like he believes it because he's been pushed. And, everybody there's probably rumors spreading all over Comdex about what just happened with the slingshot. And people know that this is a pitch they need to see. So Joe jumps in and says, unique, interesting word choice. What are you asking for? Something special, something warm, something fuzzy? This is a machine. It's not your friend. It's your employee. It works for you. The way it should be evaluated is thus: how well and how fast does it do the things I ask? Answer instantly. Anything less is a waste of your time. What's the margin of error? Answer 0. Anything more and you failed. Another word that's more important than unique will ever be speed. Let's act like adults. You want speed. This machine is the fastest one you'll find, period. Donna starts to walk up here. He says, you want to play a game with your kid? Join them for craft time at preschool. You want a buddy? Buy a dog. You want to chase rainbows, tilt the room, walk outside. There are hundreds of casinos out there built for delusional people like you who think their world is going to change so easily. You want to get something done? Buy one of these. The Computerland guy is just sort of like mildly impressed, but curious to see how people will receive it. Again, this is not the pitch Joe wants to be making. This is not the speech that he wrote. This is the opposite of the speech he wrote. This is a guy who wants to be a visionary. This is a guy who saw an article from Gordon that was a visionary article that inspired him. So he moved to heaven and earth to work at the company where Gordon works so he could make all of this happen. He wasn't sure it was practical to incorporate Cam's OS. And then he sees Joni and Haley naming their flashlights because they are friends with their flashlights now during the storm, during the hurricane. And he realizes how important it is to develop a personal connection. And he's been growing closer to Cam, and he's been telling stories and sharing his feelings. And now he has to be the guy who just sells a basic machine. I'm sure he hates this. But the Computerland guy was about to switch direction and go for something practical. And now it's the most practical option. So Joe walks back. He's going to put the ketchup-stained notes in his briefcase and close up the briefcase. Another person asks a question, how did you get everything to fit? Gordon says, chips on both sides. Who thought of that? Somebody asks. Gordon says, my wife, Donna Clark. And he looks at Donna. And you know what? This is about as close as it gets in this moment to Gordon extending an olive branch and saying, I also did something wrong here. And he's making a very public show of making the change. And Donna takes note of that. Brian in the back says, so how'd you fix the heat problem? Gordon says, we vented the side panels and changed the chip layout. It got a lot easier after we fired you. And the whole crowd goes, ooh, the rumors have been spreading through this conference. This has been what, like an hour, 2 hours? I don't know how long it's been between when Slingshot was revealed and this pitch right now, but it was enough time for word to get out. Like, people knew that a fight was breaking out, a fight between two pitches. And so we get the ooh. Somebody asks, what about IBM? I heard they're coming out with a portable. It's like, hey, by the way, should any of us be buying any of these? And Joe is just done. Look, he already put the ketchup-stained notes in his briefcase. He's done. He says, I'm sick of hearing about IBM. IBM scraps more projects in a day than any of us attempt in a year. What we did was harder. We took one idea all the way and it cost us. It cost us people, but the evidence of that cost is here. And he looks emotional. He looks like he's barely holding it together. And I think because people saw so publicly how all of this has unfolded, they know that the stakes are very high here. Gordon says, it's in the damn metal. It's like a graveyard of people, the giant, and maybe that adds another layer of context to the giant hole that Gordon dug in his backyard that was the size of a coffin. It all kind of links together for me here. So when Gordon says that, Dennis from Computerland gives a bit of a half smile. The crowd starts clapping and Dennis's smile gets bigger because people are probably going to buy this product. Donna starts looking around. She's like, oh, people are clapping. Okay. Hunt and Brian start looking around because, uh-oh, they thought they won. They thought they had the Computerland contract, but this clapping crowd seems to be indicating otherwise. So Joe gives just a twitch of a smile. It's not a hint of a smile. It's not a half smile. It's just like for a moment, he's like, it's just like, and that's too big even. He nods to Gordon like, we did it. This thing is done. Let's put Comdex to bed. Dennis is going to approach Joe after the pitch, and he says, any man who can speed up a machine by that much that fast has got a very bright future in PCs. And frankly, that's a compliment, and it's nice to have a compliment. But I don't know that Joe wants to have a bright future in PCs. Joe wants to have a bright future in world changing, in bringing people together. That's what he wants to have a bright future in. PCs were the thing that got him to the thing. So Dennis is going to open up an offer. He says, what if we took like 60,000 units at $900 a pop? Joe says, well, that's a start. Dennis says 70,000. Joe says, we'll negotiate tomorrow. He walks away from Dennis, and that's a sale. That's going to happen. Hunt and Brian are making a beeline to Dennis because they want to try to resurrect their deal with Computerland. But that's the iron they had in the fire, and it does not look like that's going to pan out. So we're going to go back to the suite. Gordon opens up champagne. We open on the shot of the champagne being opened up and just the foam spilling over. And Donna and Joe and Gordon are all sitting in silence underneath Cameron's doctored banner, the Cardiff Electric with the spray paint on it. They're just sitting in silence. Donna's going to hold up the piece that was taken out, Cam's piece. She reaches for the champagne. It's warm. It needs ice. So Joe says he'll get the ice, and he grabs a bucket. And Joe takes that ice bucket to go to the ice machine. And as he's walking down the hall, he passes a room where the door is ajar and people are whispering. And the lights are off, but there's candles lighting the room all over. It's an unusual ambiance. It's not the ambiance that we got from their party the night before. And there's one computer in the room, and there's one guy who just loads in a disk, and it's an Apple computer. And Joe pauses and looks at it. He's transfixed on it. And the computer says, hello, I am Macintosh. Joe is stunned. People in the room start whispering louder. Joe can't believe it. So the guy from Xerox looks at him and he says, are you okay? What's the matter? And Joe, still transfixed, just said, it speaks. And he's amazed. It was a very sort of like Frankenstein's monster kind of moment, like it's alive, and the truth is, it's Cam's vision times 10, Cam, like, this is just proof that Cam's innovation is the future, was the future, is the future, and that she was headed in the right direction if you want something unique and impressive. And that's what lit his fire to begin with. And they had to make these concessions to get the sale because they needed the money. Joe's just floored. And that's where this episode ends. I mean, this Comdex episode takes you all over, doesn't it? It's just like the highs and the lows. It's a lot. Now, in terms of the music, there's a lot of great music in this episode. And I believe Robert Komatsu himself, the editor, referred to this as the music episode. We're going to hear Heart of the City by Dr. Feelgood. That was a 1991 song, but that's what we're hearing when we open the episode with Cam, Joe, Gordon, and Donna drive into Comdex. That's a song playing as all the cars are driving. But then when we get inside the car, we're going to hear that Psycho Killer by Talking Heads from 1977 is on the radio. So that song is actually playing for them in the scene. Then we're going to get Blister in the Sun by the Violent Femmes, a 1983 song. And that's the montage where Cam is working on setting up the booth and Joe is working on setting up the anti-static room in their suite. There's a few songs that play at the Cardiff party. When we first see the party, We're hearing Heartbreak at 10,000 Feet by Five Alarm Music. And then we're going to hear, which was a more known song for me, Space Age Love Song by Flock of Seagulls from 1982. But after the pitch from Joe, when we're still at the party and all of the booth babes start coming out, we're going to hear Sex I'm a by Berlin from 1983. So those songs are very, very current to that time. Now, in terms of my favorite quote, I insist on using something from Donnie and Petey because I love them. Okay. And there were so many things that I could have put here, but here's what I'm going to put. From the garden party to the bachelor party, the occasion master is truly your master of ceremonies. That is for you, Donnie and Petey. Give me more Donnie and Petey. Okay, anyway. So those are my thoughts on the episode. Now, I wanted to share some feedback with you, and we'll start with some feedback on some previous episodes. And it's funny because it seems like, if you look 4 episodes earlier at any given point, you're seeing things circle back around. So Jennifer Roner was sharing about episode 104. She was just listening back to the podcast on that. And she says, okay, I got to say that my initial thought at first with Joe getting beaten up was by Lulu. In fact, I think I said it out loud the first time I watched it, but then I watched a behind the scenes interview and both Toby Huss and Jonathan Lisco implied that it was Boz who set it up. Right away, I also said out loud, no, it was Lulu. Then I laughed at myself for telling the creators that they were wrong about their own story. But then that got me thinking, how rich and vivid is this kind of storytelling where the viewer imagines so many different possibilities to a storyline that they start inventing subplots of their own? That is the kind of masterful work that engages the viewer's imagination and deepens their connection to the story. What creator doesn't dream about that? So I'll pause there and just say, okay, so people from the show are saying it was Boz. Okay, that's what they were depicting. I buy that, and I also want to interpret it differently because I feel like we've seen so much to support it being Nathan. I initially also did think it was Lulu, and then when I sat with that, I was like, but she wasn't in this same episode as the beatdown itself. She was from an episode before. So I don't feel like they would do that on a show. But Nathan, they did give us some clues in that very episode that it could be him. And the thing is, if it was Boz, which I absolutely appreciate that was the angle that the storytellers were giving us. So cool. That answers that question. And as somebody appreciating the art, I wonder if there was a scene that was cut or a line that was cut or something. I've had a few people that I've been interviewing share with me that Toby Huss's character Boz changes a lot from what it was on the page in the pilot because of how Toby Huss was playing it. I've had a sense that that Boz was initially intended to be more of a tough business guy, and Boz ends up being a guy that has sort of a more heart and is more of a storyteller. So the interpretation that it was Boz that did this does not ultimately line up for me with what I'm seeing as we move through the episodes. But I do wonder if there was something that was on the cutting room floor that would have been more on the nose with this, either but in the lead up or in the aftermath of this scene. So that's something that I'm thinking about. Now, Jennifer continues and says, one new thing I noticed on this rewatch was that during the scene when everyone is trying to figure out what happened to Cameron's disc, the janitor walks in and he's carrying a bottle of what looks like a cleaning product, but the vacuum was already there. Looked like the janitor wasn't planning on using the vacuum and someone else put it there first. Like Donna said to Joe later, she would have used a mop, not a vacuum, for a concrete floor. An extremely subtle tip that this was a setup all along, and I missed it up until now. Yeah, this show is really good at putting those things in there. And I feel the same way about the Hunt and Brian reveal in this episode. There were a lot of pieces there, but I remember the first time I watched this and I was like, Hunt and Brian? And I believed it. but I wasn't expecting it. It was a really effective reveal for me. And I think it's for all the same reasons as what Jennifer just observed about that manipulation that Joe had earlier. We got all the pieces, we got most of the pieces of Hunt and Brian in the lead up to this. But then you have to put it together. Some assembly is required. Okay, Jennifer also shares from episode 104. My favorite line from that episode is Joe to Cameron, maybe between mocking me and your 19th orange soda, you can register some happiness. That always makes me laugh. She also mentioned that Donna says about Gordon calling her Susan Fairchild, you think of me as my mother? Her indignant tone always cracks me up. This line is delivered almost like it's spontaneous and not scripted. I was really excited to see that piece of feedback come in around the time that I was going to record this episode, because that is really a prominent thing for Donna and Gordon's relationship in this episode, 5 episodes later. So this fact that, you know, she was being quoted as Susan Fairchild seems cute until it's not anymore, because it's been sort of like just something that's been nagging at her all of this time. Present Hour 24 also had some comments on that same episode 104, and there's some relevance to this one here in them as well. So Present Hour 24 says, this episode is so infuriating because the truth is so hidden and only Donna finds out what's happening. The manipulation from Joe is understandable from a character perspective, but it doesn't mean he did the right thing. He's been burned by so many people that he has turned to creating a story for the reporter because he knows in general how this industry and the magazine writer will react. I felt really bad for Cameron because she really had no idea what was happening and was the one who got blamed as a screw up for show. It really shows how vulnerable she is at this point and how all of the main characters are struggling for survival in this professional environment. Then again, she does need to clean up and mature. So it's interesting timing with that comment to this episode as well, because I can't help but think about Cameron. You know, she is young and it's such a competitive environment for all of them. This whole team is trying to survive at Comdex right now. I mean, in the most basic way, they've put everything into this. And so for all of them, this is survival mode, but some of them have navigated the survival mode more frequently in their lives or have done it before in their lives, where Cameron maybe hasn't in a professional setting. So Cameron and her vision, her genius vision that is the future, as we know now, and as we will see by the end of this episode with the Macintosh computer actually speaking, she is just like too green in this environment to know how to protect herself, to know that she needed to protect herself. And she put her heart into creating a soul for this computer, and it has to go. So I think, you know, the difference in this episode from the episode Present Hour 24 is talking about is that first situation was manufactured by Joe to create, you know, he did it on purpose and he did it to create PR for the team. But now this was not something any of them wanted, but here they are. And yeah, this is, gosh, I feel for Cam in this episode. And now, of course, we've got our commentary from Evan the Stray. So a bunch of different takes here. So first of all, a little bit of Evan's backstory. My birth nearly symmetrically cleaved 1978 and 1979. I'm the youngest of 10 when including all step siblings from blended families. This helps inform my love for the 80s, as it was when I looked at those years with so much wondrous excitement for Star Wars, Top Gun, Rad, Weird Science, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Batman, etc., BMX, video games, serious heavy metal and melodic synth pop. And I thought my siblings were cool, doing cool things. Space Age Love Song by A Flock of Seagulls is epic and fits well in room 1475. I love that you know, all of those different people, different influences in Evan's life sparked different interests for Evan. And a lot of that seems like it's coming out and being reflected, and Evan's being reminded of it with this show. Is there significance in the number 1475? Perhaps, and also germane to the situation of the printer pair characters from whom the hotel room was obtained. The Gutenberg printing press spread to Barcelona in 1475. Coming at us with history, Evan. I like this. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have another significance to 1475 that came to my mind, but if anybody does, I encourage you to share that here. Probably wasn't by accident, right? They had to choose a number. Evan says, we now understand that Hunt wasn't hiding in front of Donna's and Gordon's house, but rather coming from Brian's, right? So it's all there, because after Donna kisses Hunt on that business trip and she drives home, after that, we're going to see that there's a night when Hunt is waiting, she thinks, waiting outside her house. But then when he leaves, Brian comes up and is like, hey, is everything all right out here? It's because Hunt and Brian were just working together at Brian's house. Probably not so smart of them, but it was late at night, and they probably didn't think that Donna would be paying attention to what was happening outside. She just happened to be turning on a sprinkler and seeing Hunt outside. But yeah, the pieces were all there. So Evan continues, Cameron's feeling of betrayal, a knife in her back by Gordon and Joe excising her OS from the machine, was the requisite sacrifice to the computer gods that would yield an initial offer by Computerland of $60 million. The metaphorical Cameron-shaped ketchup smudge on the page was too painful of a vision for Joe's Judas to view. For Cameron's OS, the crimson ketchup smudge that could have been evidence of a birthed authentic partnership and first sales pitch became proof of partnership death. Apple's Macintosh unveiling almost feels like Cameron's OS soul is resurrected, more glorious and luminous than it ever was in the Giant. Joe alone shoulders the burden of that emotional reckoning. What a beautiful way to put this. That smudge feels so symbolic to me. Just the idea of Cam's fingerprint and then her not being there when it launches. She can't co-sign what just happened. She could not live with herself if she stayed there for that pitch with that machine without the soul after what just happened. But all of her fingerprints are still left behind. And, I think this scene where Joe is the only one in the room to see that Cam's idea not only lives on, but was even escalated in the Macintosh product. It's like, oh, she is the future. And he knew that. He always knew that. He didn't want to make this choice. And Evan adds a couple of his top quotes here. First runner-up, if you want to sell station wagons, you better have a sports car to park in the window. From Dennis, the Computerland guy. But first place for Evan is a line from Donna. It wasn't an affair, but it should have been. Holy freaking ouch, Batman. I felt that in my heart and gut. Damn, Gordon's line to Donna that he never gave up on her is crap. He gave up on himself and he gave up on her by being an unhelpful shell of a person. She was alone. She was more alone than someone who has no one. Oh, it's true. Evan, I mean, your work is just impeccable every time. I love your takes. That's a big line. It wasn't an affair, but it should have been. That was a really tough fight between Donna and Gordon because neither of them were taking responsibility in the fight for the things that they have done. And I guess that is a natural way where a fight might start. Like people dig their heels in. Like they've both done things that weren't good for their marriage. And neither of them really wants to fess up with that because it's like, but you did this. And another thing, but Donna's not wrong in saying yes. I had the hots for Hunt. I wanted it to be more than it was. It could have been, and would have been, and maybe should have been something more than it was. And that's partly because we weren't working. And, you know, she's digging her heels in, but at a certain point, Gordon needs to also recognize what he has with Donna and do something to fight for it more than what he's been doing, which has been nothing. So Evan, it sounds like, you know, Gordon's thought that he fought for her doesn't pass the smell test for you. What a cool episode. I mean, honorable mention to Petey and Donnie. Just how can I not end with that? You know, how can I not end with my favorite quote for them? From the garden party to the bachelor party, the occasion master is truly your master of ceremonies. That's it for today, everybody. I'm looking forward to the next one to figure out what the fallout of this episode will be. And go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire. Bye.